Donald Trump, in his latest speech in Detroit, billed himself as the pulverizer of tens of thousands, even though the venue could barely accommodate a crowd of 5,200. Surely the chairs had to learn how to clone to accommodate enough seats. Meanwhile, this church suddenly became a stage of miracles under Trump's hands. Not only that, he also proudly declared that he had done more for the black community than Abraham Lincoln. Fortunately, because according to Trump, he liberated the internet and turned Twitter into a tool to liberate democracy. And don't forget, when Joe Biden only knew how to talk, Trump acted by just talking, but louder and better. Meanwhile, images from the event show only a few consistent audience members who appear to have gone on a Trump magic show tour across the United States. It seems they have found their dream job of following Trump around and clapping every time he needs a round of applause. Everyone needs their own audience, right? In the end, Jimmy Kimmel captured the spirit of the performance and called it the biggest reality show disaster in history, in which every statement made by Trump was met with laughter. It's better than clapping enthusiastically. In conclusion, we can probably all agree that when it comes to creating unbelievable moments, Trump is truly without peer. Gui ikien fan hoi bang jiu kien ben kach ban dich ja tuk hien ja lu. Biden is out there healing ties between nations, while Trump stumbles over unfounded assertions and insults. We lifted 6.6 million people out of poverty. Black Americans saw their largest increase in home ownership on record. There's never been anything like it. This is during our period of time. We gave record funding to historically black colleges and universities. You all know that. I got great support, and I will just tell you a quick story. Trump loves to tout these numbers. But let's not forget the economic gains he brags about were part of trends set in motion long before his presidency. His so-called record funding for HBCUs, it was a continuation of policies already in place. He's repackaging achievements of others as his own. A typical Trump move to inflate his accomplishments while downplaying the groundwork laid by previous administrations. We passed historic criminal justice reform, something that they've been after. People have been after for mostly the black community for years and years. And to get it done, they needed me. And as you know, President Obama tried. Biden doesn't even try. Well, he doesn't have to, because we got it done, but we're going to get it improved. Taking credit for criminal justice reform while ignoring the tireless efforts of activists and bipartisan lawmakers is peak Trump. He forgets that Obama and Biden set the stage for these changes. His ridiculous assertion that only he could accomplish ignores the difficulties of the legislative process. Under examination, Trump's self-aggrandizing story falls apart. Amidst his disastrous Detroit speech, Jimmy Kimmel recently took to his live show to expose both Trump's terrible speeches and fake crowd sizes. So then Daddy took to stage to remind the crowd that his legal problems are really their legal problems. Every time I'm indicted, I consider it a great badge of honor because I'm being indicted for you. Thanks a lot, everybody. I appreciate it. I'm being indicted for you. He committed the crimes for himself, but he was indicted for us. He was indicted for our sins. Trump, trying to spin his legal woes as a badge of honor for his supporters, is a masterclass in delusion. He wants his base to believe that his crimes are somehow their battle, so negating his own responsibility, while avoiding the truth that he is being held responsible for his own actions, not theirs. It's a twisted approach to unite support. Typical Trump is projecting his personal shortcoming onto supporters, hoping they won't see through his self-serving story. Saving his own skin comes before advocating for the people. And of course, no Trump rally would be complete without a little fudging of the crowd size. Trump said he was standing in front of tens of thousands of people, even though the venue only held 5,200 people. He's back to exaggerating crowd size. At this point, The only way for Donald Trump to draw a crowd of 10,000 is with a Sharpie. There were so many empty seats. You couldn't tell it was a Trump rally or a Trump inauguration. Trump's obsession with inflating crowd sizes is nothing new, but it never ceases to amaze. Claiming tens of thousands in a venue that holds only 5,200 is classic Trump theatrics. He can't help but embellish the numbers to feed his ego. But the empty seats tell a different story. It's reminiscent of his inauguration day, where his claims of massive crowds were debunked by simple photographs. This constant need to exaggerate reveals a deep insecurity, desperately needing validation that just isn't there. It's more than just a fib. It's a pattern of deceit that underscores his entire persona. But still, he had the people who were there eating out of the palm of his baby hand. And your Congressman Carlos Jimenez. Do you know him? Carlos Jimenez. Some people say Carlos Jimenez. Oh, you don't like him. What's going on? Carlos, come on, Carlos. We got to get that straightened out. Yeah, or maybe you have to get his name straightened out. Trump's desperate need to appear loved and admired is almost comical. Despite the dwindling crowds, he still acts like everyone is eating out of the palm of his hand. Then, there's the classic Trump move, mispronouncing a name and pretending it's everyone else's problem. It's not Carlos Jimenez who needs straightening out. It's Trump who can't get a simple name right. This inability to remember or respect even his allies' names is a telling sign of his lack of genuine connection and care for the people he claims to support. It's all part of his disorganized, egocentric approach to leadership. Play that again, because the Jimenez part, this is one of my favorite Donald Trump moves. Some people say Carlos Jimenez. Yeah, some people say that. People like, oh, Carlos Jimenez, for example. Trump, as chaotic as he is, was not done and continued to spout more nonsense during his Detroit speech. When I left office, we had no inflation. Gasoline was less than $2. The 30-year mortgage was at 2.6%. The border was secure. Wages were rising. And the jobs were the best in the history of our country. For African American, for Black Americans. The jobs were the best in the history of our country. Other than that, what did I do? Not that much. Trump's rosy depiction of his tenure conveniently ignores the economic downturn caused by his mishandling of the pandemic. His boasts about low inflation and gas prices are undercut by the fact that these conditions were not sustainable. Moreover, his policies often favored the wealthy at the expense of the very communities he claims to have uplifted. His sarcastic, "not that much" quip is a poor attempt to brush off valid criticism of his administration's shortcomings. Biden wrote the devastating 1994 crime bill, talking about super predators. That was Biden. You know, he walks around now talking about the black vote. He's the king of the super predators. And he wrote the 1994 crime bill that you talk about so much. It's ironic to hear Trump criticize the 1994 crime bill when his own administration was rife with harsh immigration policies and family separations. His attempt to paint Biden as solely responsible for systemic issues ignores the bipartisan support the bill initially had. Trump's selective memory serves his agenda but falls apart when faced with facts. His record on criminal justice is far from spotless, and his rhetoric continues to divide rather than heal. How? Make sure to like and subscribe if you love democracy. Hope you enjoy. Trump's visit to Wisconsin next week comes as the former president is debunking a report that he called Milwaukee a horrible city. That report from Punchbowl News, NBC News, CNN also confirming it happened. Trump told House Republicans during a meeting today Milwaukee is a horrible city. The president called that report fake news. We've already seen reporting that if Donald were to win in 2024, his team of truly the most despicable anti-American people on the planet is essentially planning to turn this country into a military dictatorship with lots of revenge on the side. Donald Trump wants to talk about things that he thinks are horrible. All of us lived through his presidency, so right back at you, buddy. It appears that Donald Trump just does not like cities. And these urban challenges are not unique to Milwaukee. They exist in cities all across the United States, but I'm proud to say that in Milwaukee, we're making progress. We know that the Saudis provided billions of dollars to real estate ventures to the Trump organization. Saudi Arabia announced last week a $20 billion investment in an infrastructure fund managed by Blackstone Group, which, of course, whose head has a very close relationship with the Trump organization. So the Republicans had so many off-ramps to take. The most obvious one was the insurrection on January 6th. Time after time, they refused because they are too afraid of losing the base. And it's too late now. It is absolutely too late, barring unforeseen circumstances. There were multiple cognitive moments here in Donald Trump's speech in North Carolina. Here he talks about migrant time. Play the clip. But here is that same dim-witted Eric Trump on Fox and Friends. Here's Trump saying, now this is he thinks he's being clever, and maybe for the Fox and Friends audience he is. Donald will be the Republican presidential nominee for 2024, and we can lay all of that at the feet of the cowardice and, quite frankly, just the power-hungry, anti-democratic whim of the Republican Party. Frankly, it's too long, so we call it migrant time. I came up with that name because I come up with a lot of good names, don't I? But, you know, next, he talks about wallmongers. Play the clip. We will demolish the deep state. We will expel the warmongers from our government. Investment in Russia. Investment in Saudi Arabia is not the same as getting money from those places and them investing in you. They know that they cannot win. So the best they can do is try to get second place. And I don't know if they understand that that's meaningless. Only the winner wins in a nominating contest. But Eric tries to pull some jujitsu here by saying we have not invested in them. Every time there's an international incident, they say, well, the president's too nice to Vladimir Putin. That's because he has so many investments in Russia. He says he's too open to letting this investigation play out. That's because he has investments in Saudi Arabia. You're running the Trump organization. What's the reality? There's zero investments in Russia. There's zero investments in Saudi. We have absolutely nothing to do with those countries. And by the way, my father's been tougher on Russia than probably any human being in the world. That's what happens when you give offensive weapons to Ukraine. Right. Obama never did that. So what happens when you promote, American energy? You take away their largest financial, stream, which is oil. I mean, that's what built oil and gas is what built Russia. And all of a sudden we're saying, hey, I want to buy American oil. We've got a lot of great oil workers. We've got a lot of great energy in the U.S. How about this? We'll supply you all the energy you could ever possibly need. Yeah, very impressive for Putin. Oh, you have good oil workers. Yeah, good oil workers. Next, Donald Trump talks about how Special Counsel Jack Smith stinks. That's the word that Donald Trump says he goes. He stinks. He stinks. Play this clip. Far. He's a man. He's just a terrible human being, but he's a deranged person who wants to hurt people. I have great respect for Angela, and I have great respect for the country. My father is German, right? Was German, and born in a very wonderful place in Germany. And so I have a great feeling for Germany, but they're not paying what they should be paying. They're paying close to 1%. And we're hurting him. I'll tell you, we're hurting him. He stinks. That's not the kind of people. You know, being a prosecutor is a very important thing. Being a fair and good prosecutor is a very important thing. But some of these animals, I mean, they are bad. Trump's narrative is that he's a self-made Superman who's smarter and better educated than everybody else. But a new book from his own niece suggests what everyone but his base has already figured out. He's a fraud. And if you've studied patients with dementia, you'll know that as they struggle to try to find the words to address certain things, they'll go back to things like you stink or you suck or whatever. That's what Donald Trump's doing right there. I have no problem calling Donald a narcissist. He meets all 9 criteria as outlined in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. But the label gets us only so far. Watch as the presumptive Republican presidential nominee celebrates a deadly domestic terrorist attack he helped incite on the United States Capitol as he openly shows contempt for and toward his own supporters standing in front of him as he rambles on and on and on and on about sharks of all things and rants so bizarre that Unhinged doesn't come close to capturing it. Here, Donald Trump says that President Joe Biden was absolutely exonerated last week. Play this clip. Think of this. Joe Biden was totally exonerated last week. He's got 10 times the documents and they're classified. Mr. President, after 3.5 years, you regretted all the lying you've done to the American people. All the what? All the lying. All the dishonesties. That who has done? You have done. Tens of thousands. Yeah, go ahead, please. He just came up. Are the teleprompters not working? So not even a little bit. Great job. And then I don't pay the company that does it right. And then I end up with a story Trump doesn't pay. I don't pay contractors that do a job. And that's a job. That's a job. And then he says, President Biden looks like hell. Donald Trump focusing on President Biden's looks. And by the way, it's probably not a smart move where you are profusely sweating in an area that is not hot and you're having these cognitive moments. But anyway, play the clip. What they've done is it's all coming out of crooked Joe Biden because, look, he can't campaign. He can't campaign. He can't speak. He can't walk. He looks like hell. This is the worst border in the history of the world. There's never been. No third world country has a border like that. And no third. I'll tell you what. And I hope the military revolts at the voting booth. So there's this new book out, right? And Trump would read it if he could read. It's called American Woman, The Transformation of the Modern First Lady from Hillary Clinton to Jill Biden. And some of the juiciest bits involve former First Lady Melania Trump. I went to a boat company in South Carolina. The boat. I said, "How is it?" He said, "It's a problem, sir. They want us to make all-electric boats." So I said, "Let me ask you a question." And he said, "Nobody ever asked this question. And it must because of MIT, my relationship to MIT. Very smart." He goes, I say, "What would happen if the boat sank from its weight?" One chapter claims that once he found out about his hush money payments to Stormy Daniels, she wanted to publicly humiliate him by speaking better English, and even dropped out of going on an international trip with him. So we had to travel solo. She stuck with him so far. The big question now is whether Trump will get jail time or house arrest. If he's sentenced to jail, Melania will be inside the courtroom chanting 4 more years, 4 more. Trump will be sentenced on July 11th, and his lawyers told him, "You should get your affairs in order." Trump was like, "That's what got me in trouble in the first place. And you're in the boat, and you have this tremendously powerful battery, and the battery is now underwater. And there's a shark that's approximately 10 yards over there." By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Did you notice that? A lot of sharks. I watched some guys justifying it today. Well, they weren't really that angry. They bit off the young lady's leg because of the fact that they were not hungry, but they misunderstood who she was. Melania Trump reappeared at Trump's big dollar fundraiser in Florida over the weekend, looking absolutely miserable, looking like she is being held hostage. There are some things about Melania that we learned here that were, I thought, juicy tidbits. Interesting, gave us some more perspective. It doesn't excuse the fact that she desecrated the Rose Garden and made it look like a scary labyrinth. Joe Biden was criticized because he raised $25 million at an event. Oh, he has the elites. He has the rich people. Whatever. Then Trump goes and holds his own fundraiser at which he claims to have raised $50 million. Now, just because Trump claims to have raised $50 million at one event, I don't necessarily believe it because Trump lies all the time. Really interesting story coming out from James Dodson. He's a golf writer. So he explained that 3 years ago in 2014, this is what happened. He said, "So when I got into a cart with Eric Trump, as we were setting off, I said, 'Eric, who's funding? I know no banks because of the recession, the Great Recession, have touched the golf course. You know, no one's funding any kind of golf construction. It's dead in the water the last 4 or 5 years. These people are great.' He said there's no problem with sharks. They just didn't really understand a young woman swimming, now really got decimated, and other people to a lot of shark index. I said, so there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards. Or here, do I get electrocuted? Do you feel the breeze? Because I don't want anybody going on me. We need every voter. I don't care about you. I just want your vote. I don't care." But here is Melania. Look, I was checking to see whether she was blinking Morse code for hostage during this video. She does not look pleased to be back involved. Looks almost like she's dying of misery. And this is what he said. He said, quote, "Well, we don't rely on American banks. We have all the funding we need out of Russia." I said, "Really?" And he said, "Oh, yeah. We've got some guys that really, really love golf. I'm sure that's why they did it. And they're really invested in our programs. We just go there all the time." That's very interesting. A lot has happened on Capitol Hill since the last time Donald Trump was there. There was the deadly insurrection that he incited. There was the Biden inauguration that he skipped. There was the record-setting second impeachment that he faced for the deadly insurrection he incited. And there was a time in the immediate aftermath of all that, late January, February, March. It seemed he may never be welcome back, but we know how that turned out. Today, the former president and his 34 felony convictions trekked to Capitol Hill. The invitation to the House and Senate Republicans, where he was received like a different Don, a crime Don, seeking not supporters, but accomplices and co-conspirators. Those J6 warriors, they were warriors, but they were really more than anything else. They're victims of what happened. 2 things to deal with before we go any further. 1, Fox News didn't air that speech. What do they know? I don't know. Take a look at this short clip outside Trump's big fundraiser. Just wanting change. Rich people want it. Poor people want it. Everybody wants change. Your country is really doing poorly. We're a laughingstock all over the world. We're going to get that change very quickly. And this has been some incredible evening before. Some political news. Former President Trump's campaign has officially started vetting a short list of potential running mates. Good luck. It's like signing up to be the babysitter in The Exorcist. The chance to be Trump's VP right now, people are like, what should I wear to my interview? Antlers or bigger antlers? Yeah, they're vetting a short list of candidates. Yeah, you got to appreciate the irony of a convicted felon running a background check. They're using us as a bad example of democracy. And they're getting away with murder. And we're not going to let it happen. You're all either elected or you're going to be elected again and re-elected. And I'm with every one of you, and you know that. I'll be with you always. This is an outstanding group of people. I'm with them 1,000%. They're with me 1,000%. We agree just about on everything. And if there isn't, we work it out. This is obviously very relevant because a lot of theories revolve around how Trump had a lot of his projects financed by the Russians well before he got into the presidential race. And that, perhaps, he owed the Russians a lot of money. And that, perhaps, that could be part of the connection as to why they helped him in the race. And now, that is the conclusion of our intelligence agencies and what they might have expected in return. And two, we're not going to bleep him this year. Shitty is a word that he said, called his teleprompter called the contractors. This is what he sounds like today, though. That was him unfiltered in his own words, in front of his supporters as he seeks the White House for a third time. He is, of course, a convicted felon, his birth to worldview completely devoid of facts, untethered to reality. He offers no vision at all, to say nothing of a positive vision for the people who support him. The suspicions that Melania has been conspicuously missing from the campaign trail for very specific reasons. She doesn't want to be there. It seemed to be borne out by her presence here. Now, the term kiss the ring has been used so often with Trump, it's virtually lost all meaning. But it really was on display in Washington today. Everything about this appearance was meant to convey the idea of Republican Party unity, and they all performed it like incredibly strenuously. Anyway, don't be surprised when you hear, "Please welcome my new VP, Jelly Roll." Apparently, Trump has narrowed down his list of potential running mates to about 8 names, and here's what they had to say about the possibility of being Trump's VP. First up, Senator J.D. Vance said, "I'm honored to be considered and would love to be Trump's vice president." And this guy said, "Run, run, while you still can run, and do not look back." The man who was just convicted in a conspiracy to pay off former paramours because he feared their stories would complicate his election campaign. A man found liable for sexual assault of exactly the kind that he brags about. A man who surrounded himself with lackeys who've also been convicted or charged with serious crimes, from Steve Bannon to Peter Navarro to Paul Manafort to Roger Stone to Michael Flynn. Trump himself was pardoned or commuted the sentences of many of those men. And as far as the fundraiser goes, I just want to remind everybody, when Biden hit this single-day fundraising record, it was supposedly bad because he had the support of the elites. When Trump supposedly hits a record, it's good, because it means people want to contribute to MAGA, and people see their future of the country in supporting Trump and whatever. Well, listen to this. In a new interview, former President Trump complained that during his hush money trial, he never saw a glimmer of a smile from the jury. That's surprising because everyone serving jury duty is usually happy to be there. In the same interview, Trump said that it's very possible that if he's re-elected, he will imprison his political opponents. When he heard Vladimir Putin was like, "They grow up so fast." Now, I am not a defender of this entire system, but if by people, you mean billionaires, right? I mean, Trump's sold-out fundraiser reportedly had 100 people there with tickets ranging from $250,000 to $750,000. They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done. Well, the Biden campaign is now accusing Trump of parroting Adolf Hitler. A similar wording was used in his writings. At least one of Trump's GOP rivals has blasted him for that remark. He's disgusting. And what he's doing is dog whistling. Now Biden, the whole system's corrupt. Okay. At least Biden had 5,000 people to raise $25 million rather than 100 to supposedly raise $50 million. And you could go to the Biden fundraiser for $225. Now, I don't mean $225,000. I mean $225.